Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I did not do my intro properly, so I'm going to do that. For those of you who would tune into the podcast, right now I am recording live on YouTube, but I am not recording live on SoundCloud simply because if I want to teach and use this thing behind me, it's hard for you to see. So I decided to switch it up a little bit just so I can be more interactive with people, which is why I'm here on Facebook. So if you don't know me, my name is Janae of Janaeum.com. I go by the Millennial Money Minister. My official title is Financial Consultant, and I teach people how to manage their money so they can make better financial decisions. I was the first person to graduate from college in my family, and so I realized that there's a lot of first generation grads just like me who weren't taught about money at home, growing up in school. I actually went on to study accounting, so I did get some of it, but not to the extent that I got the education by becoming part of the financial industry. So that is what I help with, helping to bridge that gap to educate people on what their options are in terms of being able to take control of their finances and allow it to do for them what they need it to do. So one of the topics that is near and dear to my heart is home ownership. If you don't know me, I live now in Richmond, Virginia. My family, we relocated here. Hello, for those of you joining. Let me know who you are and where you're joining from, and if you share this, I would greatly appreciate it. So I'm originally from New York City, born and raised, and my family, we relocated here to Richmond, Virginia in 2006. Now, how we got here is my dad was an entrepreneur. He owned 4 trucks in the Mr. Softee franchise. If you're not familiar with Mr. Softee, it's soft serve ice cream, very popular in New York City. Made great money. My mom was able to stay at home with me. Hey! My mom was able to stay at home with me and my younger brother. I'm one of 4. I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. But my mom was able to stay at home with me and my twin for 9 years because my dad was able to take care of everything. So that was great. We was able to go to private school. We went on family vacations. We did all that. So we were the typical middle-class African-American family. But fast forward 12 years after we bought our house, we got a good deal for it. I mean, New York real estate now is ridiculous. We got a good price for it. But my dad just stopped paying the mortgage. So he stopped paying the mortgage. He stopped paying the taxes. So he had accumulated a lot of debt at the time from making bad business deals. And basically, we had 2 options. Either the home was going to get foreclosed on, or we had to sell it and move. So we sold it and we moved, and my mom, just being a mom, she relied on her instincts and basically packed us all up. We came down to Virginia and stayed with our cousins for a week. She found a place for us to stay, got us registered for school, and literally in 1 month, we were now residents of Virginia. That was a abrupt move. It just happened all of a sudden. But God does all things well, because I was able to qualify for in-state tuition when I went to VCU the next year. So home ownership is near and dear to my heart because of the fact that I had that traumatic experience. My family had that traumatic experience. And when you have money, there's no reason why 12 years into owning a home, you should lose your home. Especially if you're strategic in the beginning. So that's part of what I do. I did create a course to help people prepare for home ownership to avoid what happened to my family. And how I do that is basically showing you how to take the money that you already have and pay down whatever responsibilities you have, be that debt, to help you start saving on a consistent basis So that way, when you actually go to buy your home, you're not strapped for cash like a lot of homeowners are. You have more discretionary income to be able to invest it, and also, thank you, Pastor Richard. So you can invest that money and also pay down your mortgage faster. And it's possible, even though a lot of mortgage loans, they're either 15 years or 30, and then you have, those adjustable rate mortgages. Even though you have 15-year and 30-year mortgages, you can actually pay that off sooner. A mortgage is one of the biggest expenses that most people have. And so I believe that going into your home, you want to plan to pay more than whatever your mortgage is, but you need to know how much you can afford to begin with, and you need to know what you're working with, which is why you need a budget, so that way you know how much extra money you have to apply towards that mortgage. So so we're going to talk about that today. Like, if you're trying to get a home, where do you even start? And June is National Home Ownership Month. So this month I did the whole campaign about Power Hour to help people with budgeting and getting, holding them accountable towards their financial goals. Next month, the campaign is going to be focused heavily on people wanting to become homeowners. I'm also looking at adding a credit component for people that want the education on preparing for home ownership, but they need to do some work with their credit. I'm not a fan of credit, but I realize that people respond to that, and so putting my business hat on, you want to do what's profitable and what people are responding to. So I am looking at adding a credit component. So once you go through the course, if you are working on getting your finances together and you're working on paying down debt, but your credit is not as strong as you'd like it to be, adding that component so that way you can get that help as well. I believe that you should just strive to have your credit score should be in the 700s, whether you need credit or not. And that allows you, if you do need to use your credit, you can qualify for good rates. The reason why I'm not a huge fan of credit is because people don't realize that even if you improve your credit score, you still need to learn how to pay your bills on time so you can maintain it. So my issue is that, you work so hard either to do it on your own or to help other people, either to do it on your own or to pay someone to help you with improving your credit. But it's like, if you don't have the education to keep yourself from putting yourself back in that same position again, what was the whole point? So I'm big on education, and so it starts with your budget and then you build from there. So if you have questions about becoming a homeowner, what that process is like, please drop them in the comments. I shared earlier this week that this video I am recording live to YouTube. So I will be deleting this video after it's over, but it will be available on YouTube, and I will post the YouTube video to my Facebook business page, so that way you can rewatch it if you want to watch it again. So I want to know what people's questions are. In my mind, I go through different iterations of what people want to hear and what people want to know, but the best place to get that information is from you guys. So if you have questions about the home ownership process, if you want to become a homeowner, what you feel based on where you're at, what can help you. But I am going to go through how to get started with even getting your finances in order to prepare for that. So again, put your questions in the comments, and so that way I can keep track of that, because next month is National Home Ownership Month, and so I'll be talking a lot about that. And so I want to make sure that I address your questions, your concerns, so that way you get the information that you need, because I'm big on education. So starting the home buying process. So you want to become a homeowner. So that's happening. Where do you even start? So, and this is no matter where you are, you start by looking at your current financial situation, because at the end of the day, when you get a home, you're responsible for your mortgage, whether it's a 15-year mortgage that you have or a 30-year mortgage that you have. You're responsible for paying the bank every month for your house. So the place to start is knowing where you are financially. And that's why if you don't have a budget, I'll go through some steps on how you can figure out how much you can afford. But if you don't have a budget, it makes it a little bit harder, because now you have to pull down numbers from different places. So by having a budget, which is why that's where I start with people, when you have a budget, those numbers are right in front of you. In the do-it-yourself training that I have on budgeting, it even has the different percentages that you want to stay within. So that way you know whether you're paying too much for where you're living or if you're under that threshold. And if you want to check that out, just visit the training section on my website, which is linked in this video. It's the B word training. So where do you start? So the first place to start is how much house can you afford? Now this is on a monthly basis. So this is before you even go to the bank to see how much they'll give you. This is you doing some analysis based on your current financial situation to know where it is you stand. So the first place you want to start is how much house you can afford. And so you want to know something called the housing ratio. This is not the debt to income ratio. That comes later. The housing ratio is also called the front end ratio, because you're doing this in the beginning. The debt to income ratio, that's the back end ratio. You're doing that later. So you want to start with the housing ratio or the front end ratio. And this is you doing this analysis yourself before you even involve a bank, a realtor, any of that. This is you doing the analysis yourself to figure out where you stand. So how do you calculate that? So your housing ratio, you're taking your actual take-home pay, so how much money you actually have every month, and you're doing some simple math. So the first thing you want to do is you want to calculate what percentage you can afford based on how much you're bringing in. So based on your net pay, because that's the money you actually get versus your gross. Because I believe you should be more conservative. So that way, even if your number may be too low, meaning you have more money that you can put towards paying each month, I want to make sure that you have extra money so that way you can do extra things. So you want to take your net home pay and you want to do some simple math. If you get a conventional mortgage loan, meaning it's not a government loan, it is backed completely by the bank, that's what I have, you want to take 28% of what you make each month. So you want to take 28% of what you make each month, and then you also want to take 31% of what you make each month. 31% is for FHA. Now we'll talk about next month government mortgage loans versus private. I don't want to get into that, but conventional and FHA just means government, non-government mortgage loan. So based on how much you make each month, you want to do the math to figure out what's 28% of that and what's 31% of that. That's your range. That's your range. So that's how much you can afford to pay each month comfortably. That's how much you can afford to pay each month comfortably. Now, if you're renting, if you're paying more than 30% of your take-home pay each month, you're paying way too much in rent. So you should look at purchasing a home. But purchasing a home is definitely a responsibility, not one that should be taken lightly. And in my course, I talk about the mindset you need to have as a homeowner before you even go into it, how you need to be handling your finances before you even get into it, because this is a commitment. And I take the approach of buying with the thought in mind that I could use this home later as a investment property. So if you're familiar with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they talk about the fact that a house is not an asset. Why? Because it doesn't put money into your pocket. It actually takes money out because you're paying a mortgage. Now, if you rent it out, that house now becomes an asset because it's bringing money in. And so the approach that I take people through in my course is basically how do you strategically buy a home that you actually like and want to live in, but one that you can potentially profit from later. Now, if you want to stay in that home, great, but you don't want to just, most people don't own just one home in their lifetime. Most people after 5 years, 10 years, most people after 10 years, they're looking to move somewhere. But if you're not going to be in your house for at least 5 years, there's no point in even buying it, because when you look at the numbers, you come out in the negative because of how much you laid out versus what you'll get later. And then there's equity and all that stuff. We'll talk about that next month. Now we're just talking about where you start. And if you have questions, just pop them in the comments, because I'll collect those and keep those in mind when we talk next month. So if you're just joining, hello. My name is Janae of Janaeam.com. I go by the Millennial Money Minister. My official title is Financial Consultant, and I teach people how to manage their money so they can make better decisions. Next month in June is National Homeownership Month, and that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because of just kind of my personal story. So I'll be sharing information to help people who are navigating through that process, and sharing some tools and resources that they can use to help them along the way. So I don't want to assume what people want to know. So I want you to put your questions in the comments, and any thoughts you have if you are someone who wants to own a home and you're stuck right now. But this video, I will be sharing kind of where to get started. And we started with tip number 1, which is determining how much you can afford before you even go to the bank, before you contact a realtor. This is where you start. And if this makes sense, tap your screen so that way I know that you're actually following. And if you have questions, I see them, I can respond to them, I can answer them. I will answer them. And just an FYI, the replay for this video will only be available on YouTube. I will be deleting this off of Facebook. And that's just so I can build up my YouTube channel. So you want to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that way you don't miss anything. Okay, so we talked about how much house you can afford. So you need to know the housing ratio, and that's 28% to 31% of your take-home pay. The 28% is if you get a conventional mortgage loan, which we'll talk about next month. 31% is if you get an FHA loan, which we'll talk about next month. But all those terms mean is one's a government loan and one's not. That's all that means. So the next thing, how much house should you actually buy? So now you know how much you can actually afford to pay on a monthly basis. So you know kind of what that sweet spot is. Now you want to figure out how much house can you actually buy. Now I know that we have our idea of our dream home, but what I will actually tell you is that you can find your dream home in an affordable price range. It may not be the neighborhood that you want to be in, because at the end of the day, Location is what can potentially drive the price up, and typically it does. Like the square footage for a home in Eastern Henrico or Verina, where I am, is a lot different than a short pump because the land is more valuable. So you want to keep that in mind. What I did before I bought my house, I had my wish list, and on my wish list I had everything that I wanted my house to have. Now I took the approach of renting for 2 years just to get me adjusted to living on my own, paying bills and all that stuff before I bought, so that way I didn't jump from living with my mom to living in a house and having this whole culture shock about, how do I fix this and that and all that good stuff. So I purposely rented for 2 years just to get adjusted to that. So in terms of how much house you should buy, you want to start with, you have your idea of what type of house you want, what's your dream home. I wouldn't so much focus on the outside, I would focus on the inside. So like for me, the things that were non-negotiable was I wanted tan walls. Like I didn't want white walls because white walls look plain to me. And I'm not a painter. In fact, I tried to paint my dining room and I literally painted one wall and quit. And now I call it my accent wall because I'm not a painter. So that was on my wish list. Like I wanted a home that did not have white walls. And you have a lot of homes that have white walls. So that helped narrow down what houses I was and was not interested in. So I wanted tan walls. As you can see, I have tan walls. My whole house is tan, and my bedroom is like a goldish color. But I wanted tan walls. I wanted large counter space because my apartment downtown, it had small counters. And at that time, I was doing a lot of meal prepping. So I was literally having to prep my meals on the counter above my washer and dryer that was there when you first walked in. So I knew that I either wanted an island or a large countertop. And so my kitchen has a nice size counter space where I can grill and cut and chop and move stuff around, and I'm not getting in the way. So that's another thing I had on my list. I wanted a master bedroom, bath with a shower and separate tub and a large walk-in closet. So I wouldn't so much focus on kind of the exterior because I didn't even think about that. I was more concerned about the inside of it because yes, people will see the outside of it, but you have to live on the inside, and you want to make sure that your home is comfortable. It looks how you want it to look. It has the feel that you want it to have. So that way you can feel comfortable in your own home. So the reason why I don't want you to get caught up on the outside of things is because you can potentially start looking at homes that are in a higher price range that you may not be able to afford, when you can find all of the stuff when you actually think about the stuff that you actually want, you can actually find that in a home that's a lot more affordable, that could potentially be a very lucrative investment property later, and something that you can pay off pretty quickly versus being stuck on the fact that there are a lot of big houses with all this space and all that stuff that you don't even need. After becoming a homeowner, I realized that I have way too much space to the point where it's annoying. So that's why I say start with writing out, your list of, or having in mind what you actually need in your home and want in your home, so you can look for those things versus your eyes will naturally be drawn to big houses because they're beautiful. And who doesn't like looking at a nice house? I do. I like looking at nice houses, but when you think about actually living in it, that's a different story. And a lot of space will annoy you. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. A lot of space will annoy you. Like, it annoys the crap out of me. The fact that I have a vacant room, a guest room with furniture in it, but I never go in there. So I forget when the sheets need to be washed and all that stuff, because I have visitors track through randomly. I never go in the guest bathroom, so I don't know if it needs to be clean or what. Like, I literally just use my kitchen, my living room, my office, my bedroom. So having a lot of space will annoy you, and if you're paying for it, you want to be using it. So I'm not a fan of getting more house just because you can get more house. I'm a minimalist, so that's why. But if you plan to, like, if you're a couple and you plan to have a family, it makes sense for you to get more space. But if you're a single person, most likely if you get married, you and your spouse are going to find something else anyway. So I wouldn't plan for that. So I would plan based on your life right now. And if you're a couple, you know, y'all have what y'all are planning for. But plan for your life right now. So yeah, having a lot of space will annoy you. So don't get caught up by big houses, fancy houses, especially if it's in a price range that you can't afford. Focus on the inside, because that's where you're actually going to be living. And you want to make sure that it has everything that you need and want. And most of the time you can find exactly that for a fraction of what you would have paid had you been stuck on the outside and how big the house was. So my house, I got a really good deal on it. I would say it was about $20,000 less than my the top of my price range. And my big thing was I wanted to be in the suburbs and like 15-20 minutes from the city. So I'm like 15 minutes from Shockoe Bottom, 15 minutes from downtown. So, because that's what I was used to growing up. The house that we lived in New York was literally up the hill from LaGuardia Airport. So we were like 20 minutes from Manhattan, which is where we went to church. Our church was in Harlem. And I went to school, high school in Lower Manhattan by the World Trade Center. So I was like, well, more like 45 minutes from, because that's the bottom of Manhattan. But to get into Manhattan was only like 20 minutes. So you want to think about your actual lifestyle. I'm a firm believer in dreaming, but you don't want to dream too far where you can't actually enjoy if the dream actually came true, if that makes sense. Okay. So I want you to tap your screen if this makes sense and if you understand, because I want to make sure that you're getting this, that you're following. Because part of me being a teacher is I want to make sure that my students are listening and learning. Okay. I see a thumbs up. And if you have questions about anything related to home ownership, drop them in the comments so that way I can keep track of that, and we'll talk about it next month for National Home Ownership Month. Again, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not assuming what people want to know and what people have questions about, but I'm actually asking that question. So that way you can get the information that you need to help you along your journey. So again, my approach to home ownership is one where you're getting your finances in order first. So that way you can free up money, because a lot of homeowners are strapped for cash because of the fact that they're paying too much for their mortgage and they got a whole bunch of extra bills and responsibilities. So whether it's you going through my course or working with me one-on-one, we are starting with the mindset that you're not going to be accumulating a whole bunch of stuff, but you're working with the money that you have to pay off whatever you have going on, to make sure you have enough money to be saving on a regular basis, paying down debt if you have debt, saving towards your future, giving, tithing, and all that, and then using the rest to live off of. Because what that does is it pretty much trains you to invest your money versus waste your money. And when you have the ability to invest your money, you can do a lot of things like paying your home off sooner. If you have kids, you can set up trust funds for them. If you don't have kids, you can contribute more to your retirement on an individual basis and not have to rely on your job, because that's a big thing, especially with no one's job is safe nowadays. So those are the things that you can do when you have money available to do them. So the first one was, this is the process on how you get started with buying a home. So number one is knowing how much house you can afford. So you want to know your housing ratio. So that range is 28% to 31% of what you bring home each month. So that's the range of what's comfortable. And if you're renting, if you're paying more than 30%, you're paying too much in rent. So home ownership should definitely be something that you consider, so you can save money. Number two is how much house you should buy. You want to look at your annual gross income and multiply that by 3. That's just a rough calculation of how much you can afford to buy, or how much you should buy. So whatever your annual gross income is, you want to multiply that by 3. That's considered comfortable. Okay, it's been about 32 minutes. And then the last one is in terms of knowing how much your bank will give you, or being able to qualify for a mortgage loan, you need to know your debt-income ratio. So that's one that's more commonly talked about, because at the end of the day, regardless to how much you can afford and how much house you should buy, the banks are the ones giving you money. So you need to know, what range you need to be in, so that way they'll actually say, yes, I'll give you a loan, and they'll actually give you a loan for the amount of money that you actually need and want. So that's where the debt to income ratio comes in. So that's also called the back end ratio. And so the range for that is 36% to 41%. Now this is all of your debt payments that you're paying each month. So whether it's credit cards, your car loan, personal loan, you're adding up all of your debts and you're dividing that by how much money you make each month. And so if that number is between 36 and 41%, you're at the high range, so you should work to pay some of those things down, so that way it frees up some money. If you're on the higher end, then you know that you need to work to pay those things down, because a bank probably won't give you any money. Now there are one-off scenarios where they might have programs that will work with you, but this is standard information that works across the board. It works across the board. Y'all are not talking back to me, so I don't know if I'm giving you too much information, just enough, if you understand it. If you don't, I need y'all to say something. And again, if you have questions, put them in the comments. We will address them next month during National Homeownership Month. And I'm also recording this live on YouTube, so the replay of this will be available on my YouTube channel, which I will post to my Facebook business page. I will delete this video after it's over. Okay, so those are all the tips that I have. That's basic how you can start to figure out, numbers wise, where to start in terms of becoming a homeowner. I've been a homeowner for almost 4 years now. I'm over it. But no, it's been a good journey. I'm glad that I experienced it. But I will tell you, it's overrated. It is overrated. It is overrated. And I say that mainly because being single, like, I'm not a handy person at all. Like, I can put together furniture if it comes with an instruction manual and all the tools and all that stuff. But like hot water stuff that I had to deal with, breakers going out, that stuff is annoying. And then like when the seasons change and like during the springtime, like ants just come from out the woodworks. Like dealing with that is exhausting. Especially when you're used to being able to put in maintenance requests and having somebody respond right away. Now, if I had help, but I don't plan on getting married anytime soon. If I had help where, I had a man to take care of all that stuff, then great. I wouldn't be as, not bitter, but I wouldn't have as much of an attitude, but I do. Homeownership is overrated. But I mean, there are some joys to it. It's just additional responsibility. One of the good things is that, of course, I get to write off what I pay on my taxes, and so my deductions are huge. They range anywhere, because of all the stuff that I have. I actually have two mortgages. This one and my vacation home. So I actually have two, but my deductions range from like $12,000 to $18,000 a year. So it's good for that. But I see now that I'm about low maintenance, and so being a homeowner is not convenient for someone who wants low maintenance. But hopefully I'll be getting a property manager soon, so I won't have to worry about that stuff. But still, it's an additional expense. Plus with landscaping, which I talk about in my course, kind of factoring that into your budget. Yeah. So that's all I have. If you have questions, put them in the comments so that way I can keep track of that. I do not see any questions. So I hope this was helpful. Next month, June, is National Homeownership Month, so I'll be talking a lot about that. You won't see the Power Hour campaign that I'm running now. That's specifically for May. June will be focused a lot on home ownership, but at the foundation, you want to start with your budget, so you'll need that anyway. But I'll be talking a lot about the course that I created to help prepare people for home ownership. On my website, you can read more about it. Yeah, I'll be focusing a lot on home ownership in that whole process. So I hope this was helpful. I will be deleting this, but the replay will be available on my business page via YouTube. So I'll post the YouTube video momentarily so that way you can rewatch it if you need to, and take notes if you didn't get a chance to take notes as we went through. And as you have questions, just comment on the video when I post it, so that way you can get your questions answered next month. Because I don't want to assume that I know what people want to know, or am asking the questions that they would ask, so why not ask you? But I do have tools and resources to help people along their home ownership journey. The place to start is your budget again. So whether you need someone to work with you one-on-one and hold your hand, I have that option available. That's the Power Hour session that I talked so much about. So if you go to my website on the Work With Me tab, you can schedule your Power Hour session there. That's us working one-on-one. If you want to work on your own, because I understand we live in a DIY generation, the training section of my website, you can start with the B word training. It talks about these ratios and helps you calculate them. The templates that I provide to create your budget with, it has the percentages of how much you should be spending in each category in your budget, from housing to entertainment, so that way you're not going over. So yeah, those are the two places to start with your budget. And then the course that I created on homeownership, it gives you everything from, what type of mindset you need to have before becoming a homeowner. What are things you need to be keeping track of? It goes through the budget, it goes through paying off your debt, it goes through how much you need to save. It takes you through what the actual home buying process actually looks like, how to find down payment assistance, how to connect with a realtor, and then once you actually get the keys, what you need to be doing with your money after that. So it's really exhaustive. It has a lot of information. I'm trying to figure out whether it's too much and needs to be condensed so it's easily digestible. But for those who have, already signed up for the course and are in it and working through it, it's like you can spend a lot of time just with that information. Seriously. Like my whole journey from deciding to become a homeowner and actually buying was 7 years. It was actually 7 years. So you can spend a lot of time with the information that I put in the course. So I'm thinking about maybe condensing it so it is easily digestible, because I know nowadays people's attention spans are like this. And so I don't want to overload people. I want to give them what they need, but because I am a teacher, naturally I give everything and assume that you know what to do with it, but I realize that's not always the case. So sometimes I realize that I do need to reel it back sometimes. But I only know that if you tell me. So I would greatly appreciate your feedback. If you have questions about the homeownership process, or if you want me to clarify anything that I discussed today, that would help me out a lot to know what it is you need to help you on your journey. So whether you're preparing to buy a home, or if you're already a homeowner, you're trying to improve your finances, I tackle both angles, but I focus a lot on before you buy. Because once you got a mortgage, it's hard to maneuver because your budget is limited. So that's why I focus more so on the beginning stages. So, all right. So again, this will be deleted. I did record it on YouTube. It will be on my YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. And the YouTube video will be posted to my Facebook business page. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.